Freedom for All by Neville Goddard, 1966. Read by Josiah Brandt. Foreword. Public opinion will not long endure a theory which does not work in practice. Today, probably more than ever before, man demands proof of the truth of even his highest ideal. For ultimate satisfaction, man must find a principle which is for him a way of life, a principle which he can experience as true. I believe I have discovered just such a principle in the greatest of all sacred writings, the Bible. Drawn from my own mystical illumination, this book reveals the truth buried within the stories of the Old and New Testaments alike. Briefly, the book states that consciousness is the one and only reality, that consciousness is the cause and manifestation is the effect. It draws the reader's attention to this fact constantly, that the reader may always keep first things first. Having laid the foundation that a change of consciousness is essential to bring about any change of expression, this book explains to the reader a dozen different ways to bring about such a change of consciousness. This is a realistic and constructive principle that works. The revelation it contains, if applied, will set you free. Neville. All right, so in the foreword here, he is talking about, he says, public opinion will not long endure a theory which does not work in practice. So what he's saying here is that he understands that man demands proof of the truth of even his highest ideal, meaning that people aren't going to believe something that does not work in actual practice. It's very easy to see through, something that isn't true. And then he goes on to say that he feels he has found a principle which can become a way of life in the Bible, the greatest of all sacred writings, he says. And then he says, drawing from my own mystical illumination. Now, when he says mystical illumination, he's talking about a series of mystical experiences that he himself has had. Now, remember, he's writing this book in 1966, and at this point, he's already had his series of mystical experiences, which I believe it began in 1959. It really helped him wake up to all of this. So really what he's saying is that because of his own mystical experiences, he's able to share what he feels is the truth that is buried within the stories of the Old and New Testaments alike. And then he says that consciousness is the one and only reality, and that if you want to change consciousness, you must change, if you want to change the expression of consciousness, you must change your consciousness. And he says that this book explains to the reader a dozen different ways to bring about such a change of consciousness. So being the book Freedom for All, in the chapters, and there's 9 of them here, he's going to talk about how to bring about a change of consciousness to create a manifestation. Chapter 1, The Oneness of God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Hear, O Israel. Hear, O man made of the very substance of God. You and God are one and undivided. Man, the world, and all within it are conditioned states of the unconditioned one, God. You are this one. You are God conditioned as man. All that you believe God to be, you are. But you will never know this to be true until you stop claiming it of another and recognize this seeming other to be yourself. God and man, spirit and matter, the formless and the formed, the creator and the creation, the cause and the effect. Your Father and you are one. This one, in whom all conditioned states live and move and have their being, is your I am, your unconditioned consciousness. Unconditioned consciousness is God, the one and only reality. By unconditioned consciousness is meant a sense of awareness, a sense of knowing that I am, apart from knowing who I am. The consciousness of being, divorced from that which I am conscious of being. I am aware of being man, but I need not be man to be aware of being. Before I became aware of being someone, I, unconditioned awareness, was aware of being. And this awareness does not depend on being someone. I am self-existent, unconditioned consciousness. I became aware of being someone, and I shall become aware of being someone other than this that I am now aware of being. But I am eternally aware of being, whether I am unconditioned formlessness or I am conditioned form. Okay, so he's talking about how God is unconditioned consciousness, or quite simply, just your awareness of being. He talks about the I am that is within every child born of woman as being the God, as being God. And he says that a man may forget who he is, may forget his name, may forget details about his identity, but he can't forget that he is. I cannot forget that I am, because my I am is my awareness of being. And the very fact that I am aware of being, before I'm aware of any other details about my being, about what I am being or who I am being or how I am being, just that mere fact that I am aware of being, that is God. That is the part of me that is the God consciousness, the unconditioned consciousness. And then he says that everything after that is just layers of conditions or layers of form placed on top of that one root comprehension and understanding of that one root state, which is just awareness, pure and simple awareness. As the conditioned state, I, man, might forget who I am or where I am, but I cannot forget that I am. This knowing that I am, this awareness of being, is the only reality. This unconditioned consciousness, the I am, is that knowing reality in whom all conditioned states, conceptions of self, begin and end. But whichever remains the unknown knowing being when all the known ceases to be. So he's talking about how the unconditioned consciousness, that root innate state of awareness, is all that is, and it is immortal. So your awareness of being persists whether or not you're aware of being a human, whether you're aware of being a specific gender, whether you're aware of being a specific name, a specific identity. All of those are things that are layered on after that one root state of awareness, that one root state of I am-ness. All of those are just conceptions of self, beginning and end. But underneath all of that is this unknown knowing being, that unknown knowing awareness. All that I have ever believed myself to be, all that I now believe myself to be, and all that I shall ever believe myself to be, are but attempts to know myself, the unknown, undefined reality. So he's talking about how all of the beliefs that you layer on to that unconditioned state of consciousness are like little forms that you put on top of it. And all of those little forms are your attempts to know yourself, your attempts to define the undefined, your attempts to condition the unconditioned root state of consciousness. So I remember hearing this quote that said, "You are the universe experiencing yourself." And if you are the universe, if you are God, and you're attempting to define yourself, the beliefs that you collect and layer onto your life as being true about who you are all states, are all conditions that you're putting on top of that one root state of unconditioned consciousness. This is why it's very important that you imagine wisely what you believe yourself to be. This unknown knowing one, or unconditioned consciousness, is my true being, the one and only reality. I am the unconditioned reality, conditioned as that which I believe myself to be. I am the believer limited by my beliefs, the knower defined by the known. The world is my conditioned consciousness objectified. That which I feel and believe to be true of myself is now projected in space as my world. The world, my mirrored self, ever bears witness to the state of consciousness in which I live. So he talks about how your concept of yourself is projected into the screen of space as your world. Other famous writers and authors have said things like, if you want to see the contents of your mind, simply open your eyes. And it's the same concept here. Whatever you feel and believe to be true of yourself is what you see when you open your eyes and look around you. The world is a mirror of your beliefs about yourself. It's a mirror of yourself. In fact, he even calls it, the world is the mirrored self, ever bears witness to the state of consciousness in which I live. There is no chance or accident responsible for the things that happen to me or the environment in which I find myself. Nor is predestined fate the author of my fortunes or misfortunes. Innocence and guilt are mere words, with no meaning to the law of consciousness, except as they reflect the state of consciousness itself. The consciousness of guilt calls forth condemnation. The consciousness of lack produces poverty. Man everlastingly objectifies the state of consciousness in which he abides, but he has somehow or other become confused in the interpretation of the law of cause and effect. He has forgotten that it is the inner state which is the cause of the outer manifestation. As within, so without. And in his forgetfulness, he believes that an outside God has his own peculiar reason for doing things, such reasons being beyond the comprehension of mere man. Or he believes that people are suffering because of past mistakes, which have been forgotten by the conscious mind. Or, again, that blind chance alone plays the part of God. As within, so without, right? So he's talking about how the world is the mirror, but it's easy to forget that the world is just mirroring back to us our own state of consciousness. It's easy to believe that maybe the world is random, or maybe there's a God outside of us who has a peculiar mentality or strategy for making things happen to us. Or maybe there's a divine order to all of it, but it's outside of the realm of comprehension of mere man. Or maybe he believes that people are suffering as punishment for some mistake, or that blind chance alone plays the part of God. Everything is random. It's easy to forget that you are the cause of everything that takes shape in your life. One day, man will realize that his own I-am-ness is the God he has been seeking throughout the ages, and that his own sense of awareness, his consciousness of being, is the one and only reality. The most difficult thing for a man to really grasp is this: that the I-am-ness in himself is God. It is his true being, or father state, the only state he can be sure of. The Son, his conception of himself, is an illusion. He always knows that he is, but that which he is an illusion created by himself, the Father, in an attempt at self-definition. I love the way Neville says this. The I amness in each one of us is God. That is our true state or Father state. And from that state of awareness, that state of I amness, we give birth to our conditioned consciousness, which is our awareness of being something or someone. But that something or someone that we're aware of being is an illusion created by our awareness of being at an attempt at self-definition, at an attempt to define ourselves. Because the consciousness is the universe, and the universe is experiencing itself. And so when you layer on a definition of yourself, you're creating a state that you can experience. Again, he always knows that he is, but that which he is an illusion created by himself, the Father, in an attempt at self-definition. This discovery reveals that all I have believed God to be, I am. I am the resurrection and the life is a statement of fact concerning my consciousness. For my consciousness resurrects or makes visibly alive that which I am conscious of being. Again, this discovery reveals that all I have believed God to be, I am. I am the resurrection and the life is a statement of fact concerning my consciousness. For my consciousness resurrects or makes visibly alive that which I am conscious of being. I am the door. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers. Shows me that my consciousness is the one and only entrance into the world of expression. That by assuming the consciousness of being or possessing the thing which I desire to be or possess is the only way by which I can become it or possess it. That any attempt to express this desirable state in ways other than by assuming the consciousness of being or possessing it is to be robbed of the joy of expression and possession. I am the beginning and the end, reveals my consciousness as the cause of the birth and death of all expression. I am hath sent me reveals my consciousness to be the Lord, which sends me into the world in the image and likeness of that which I am conscious of being, to live in a world composed of all that I am conscious of. Okay, so in this paragraph, he's taking a couple of quotes from Scripture and he's translating them. He's interpreting them to help you understand how to apply the words that the Bible is using to his concept of consciousness being the one and only reality. So he starts by talking about, I am the door. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers. So basically what he's saying here is that consciousness is the one and only entrance into the world. It's our awareness of being that allows us to have this experience of being. And he says that the only way to become or possess something is to become conscious of being or possessing that something. And that to attempt to express this desirable state. So again, you are unconditioned consciousness attempting to define yourself by layering on states of consciousness onto your unconditioned awareness, which is your I am-ness. So you're creating what you are. So you're saying, I am such and such. I am this person. I am this place. I am wealthy. I am wise. I am successful. Whatever it is, like these ideas, you're layering onto your unconditioned state of consciousness, which is your I am-ness. And he's saying that if you want to become something, the only way to become it is to become conscious of being it, because your consciousness is the one and only reality. So you simply have to layer a condition of having or being whatever it is you want to have or be on top of your simple root state of awareness of being. And the last Bible quote he gives here says, I am hath sent me. And he says that reveals my consciousness to be the Lord, which sends me into the world in the image and likeness of all that I am conscious of being, to live in a world composed of all I am conscious of. So, to translate that, I am unconditioned awareness, but I take on a consciousness of being something, an image and a likeness, this form, this body, these ideas, this personality, and I wear it into the world to live in this world, and the world is literally composed of everything that I am aware of. So I take a body and identity that I am aware of into a world that's composed of everything that I'm aware of. And as I go into that world, I can layer on additional states of being and states of consciousness as I please. And that's exactly what he's teaching us how to do. I am the Lord, and there is no God beside me, declares my consciousness to be the one and only Lord, and beside my consciousness there is no God. Be still and know that I am God means that I should still the mind and know that consciousness is God. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. I am the Lord, that is my name. Now that you have discovered your I am, your consciousness to be God, do not claim anything to be true of yourself that you would not claim to be true of God. For in defining yourself, you are defining God. That which you are conscious of being is that which you have named God. God and man are one. You and your Father are one. Your unconditioned consciousness, or I am, and that which you are conscious of being are one. The conceiver and the conception are one. If your conception of yourself is less than that which you claim as true of God, you have robbed God, the Father, because you, the Son or conception, bear witness of the Father or conceiver. Do not take the magical name of God, I am, in vain, for you will not be held guiltless. You must express all that you claim yourself to be. Name God by consciously defining yourself as your highest ideal. Okay, so here he's talking about the conceiver and the conception are one. So your awareness of being and your awareness of being that which you believe yourself to be are one. So this is where he's cautioning you not to take the magical name of God in vain. For when you claim something to be true of yourself, you're claiming it to be true of God. Thus, it's important to name God by consciously defining yourself as your highest ideal. And that ends chapter 1. Subscribe to this channel so that you will receive notifications on your device when new Neville Goddard content is posted.